Hello, wonderful to see everyone. Thank you for coming to Coincidence Cafe. This is a monthly gathering sponsored by the Coincidence Project as part of our mission to illuminate the invisible currents that connect and unify us. And we do that through our exploration of meaningful coincidences, such as synchronicity and serendipity and seriality, which is one I know we'll touch on today. Seriality or serial. Coincidences repeat, patterns that repeat. So cycles or series or patterns that are connected or identical in some way that occur over time. And so with the Coincidence Cafe, we have new co-hosts each time. Today we have Brian, who is quite the cafe regular, along with Tugce. Tugce is a newer collaborator to the Coincidence Project, and this is her first time co-hosting for Coincidence Cafe. So to start us off, I would love to know in the chat if you guys could share where you are today. Just let us know where you're located. It's always fun to see where we all are. We have Virginia, Ohio, California, Washington State, Toronto, Canada, New York, Puerto Rico. Hope the weather's nice there in Puerto Rico. From the north of England, from Florida, another couple from Virginia, well represented today. And we wanted to know, as we step into this realm of meaningful numbers, if you have a meaningful number. So do you have a lucky number or a number where you've experienced particular patterns of synchronicity and meaningful coincidence? Let us know in the chat. If there's a number, post the number. You don't have to just say yes, you can post the number. Yeah. We've got a few coming in already. We've got 1111, which is a great one. I have those sometimes myself. 223, lovely, very specific. 14, 37, got 1122, 222, those seem related. 148, 23, 22, 153, number 3. Numerology 399999. That'll be a fun one to explore. I know we're going to talk about 3, 6, and 9 some today. One person has quite a number of them. There are 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13.
Yeah, that's the Fibonacci series.
So there you go. The whole Fibonacci series, meaningful number for sure. 11, 33, and 3, 6, and 9. So these are quite appropriate to our conversation today. And 137. I think we also had 37 without the 1. So there we go. And Brian, I'll invite you to come up and take it away here and begin our exploration of meaningful coincidences, connected numbers.
Oh, let's see. I first became aware of connections and numbers when I started my metaphysical spiritual journey early on, fairly early on, and I noticed an odd pattern back around 2007, 2008, where the number 218 kept coming up. And my parents, who were helping me a little bit at that time, noticed it too. They would end up in parking space 218. My apartment number was 218. The number 218 kept popping up in other ways, and this lasted for several months where the number 218 would pop up. And I was just learning about all this. Well, I still am, but I was quite the neophyte at that time. So that was 2008. And things sort of died down at that point. But fast forward to 2016, 2017, and what started happening was I would have certain numbers popping out at me, almost jumping out at me, not quite physically, but it was as if the energetic resonance of the numbers or the series of numbers would draw itself to my attention. And the first one started to be 47, and then I had other numbers, 22 and 222, and I think you get the idea. And I didn't know what that meant. To quote a Joni Mitchell song, I should say I'm not mathematically inclined. To quote a Joni Mitchell song, when it comes to mathematics, I have static in the attic. But it still intrigued me. And as the years have gone on, my consciousness has been more and more drawn to numbers and patterns of numbers. For instance, within the last couple of months, the number 43 and 37 keep popping up for me. What I have learned to do is, and I have no idea whether this is correct or not, there are certain sites on the internet that talk about angel numbers and what vibrations resonate with what number. So 43 is supposed to be a number of ascended masters assisting in healing and so forth. 37 is supposed to be an indication that one is in alignment with one's proper life path, that sort of thing. I'm not sure how much that resonates with me, but some of it probably is at least somewhat aligned. I think part of what's going on with me is that perhaps it's not angels guiding me per se. At least some of the time it isn't. But I wonder if, because I'm at least somewhat intuitive, as I imagine many of you, if not all of you are, that the energy and vibration of those figures and numbers keep popping up in my consciousness. It can be very, what we might call strange from our perspective. For example, with the number 37 popping up so often, I might get a YouTube video talking about the ubiquity of the number 37. I don't know if you all are familiar with the YouTube channel Veritasium, but the other month I was thinking about the number 37, which kept popping up for me. And guess what? There was a video about the ubiquity of the number 37 in the structure of the understanding within the scientific realm, the orthodox scientific realm. Yeah, so I was wondering what you all might make of this and what your experiences with synchronicities and repeating patterns of numbers might be. And I wanted to hear from you all because I haven't very much explored numerology or other aspects of number theory and ideas, and I would love to hear what your experiences have been. And I hope that I'll get a 37 with this. Hopefully. What do you think? I think it's a safe bet, but we'll see. But my question would be to you all, for when we get to the breakout room, what have your experiences with numbers been, and what meaning would you ascribe to it? Uh, uh, it doesn't necessarily have to be angel numbers or numerology, but I would be curious as sort of a semi academic, semi-therapeutic perspective, you could almost say, what your perspectives are. I can't say I have not been able to attach any particular correlation in my case to when certain numbers pop up. I think that basically when I'm working on healing, for example, I'm doing a lot of meditation lately, and I'm trying to work on matters related to my cerebral palsy, which is why I'm in the wheelchair. I don't know if you all can see that. And it's why I'm looking quite a bit spastic when I talk to you now. I have spastic cerebral palsy. So I think the number 37 has something to do with my own efforts to participate in my self-healing. But that's pretty much all I can figure out. Yeah, I don't know if it's been 10 or 15 minutes yet, but I can't wait to get to the breakout rooms and see what you guys come up with.
Okay, so Brian, just to repeat the prompt for everyone, you're inviting them to describe their own experience with meaningful numbers and synchronicity of numbers. Anything else?
Just to see how everyone would interpret it, whether it's
Yeah.
in the guise of angel numbers or numerology or whatever other perspective or system they might use to interpret it, and what correlations might be involved with that, whether they were doing something or involved in some activity that might precipitate them seeing those numbers, or perhaps even feeling the energetic resonance of certain figures of numbers.
Okay, yeah. So along with your experiences with meaningful numbers, how you've interpreted them, and a little bit perhaps about what they have meant to you. Was there a system that helped you interpret them? A source or kind of framework that you've found that's helpful? And then what have those meanings seem to be that you want to share with your partners? Is that good, Brian?
That would cover it.
All right, so we'll have 2 to 3 in each breakout room, and we'll have 12 minutes, so each person to speak about 3 to 4 minutes. Please keep an eye on the time to make sure your partners have a chance to speak, just in case you get excited and carried away. And you'll have 1 extra minute pop up on a countdown. If you click on the dark blue that with that pop up, it's going to take you back to this main room early, away from your partners. You can just click on the white or gray spaces of the pop up and move it off of your friends' faces, and then you don't have to return early. So we'll see you all in 13 minutes, and we'll come back and see where we've landed.
I'm so sad.
Hi, welcome back. Why are you sad, Sean?
We didn't have enough time. Oh,
Were you on the edge of something you want to share?
no, sorry. So we didn't delegate time as thoroughly as we should have, and Michelle unfortunately didn't get to finish her entire stories, but it
Okay.
was great.
Well, we lost just a couple people. Hopefully they'll come back if they can. We have time now to chat about what came up in the breakouts. I was with Mark and he got cut off, but he had been sharing. So I have he uses the Pythagorean system to track important life numbers, and so that is a particular system. And I found a site that explains that. Looks like we still have some folks coming back from the breakout rooms. Hi, everybody. We are coming back. So I was with Mark, but I think he got cut off, and he uses the Pythagorean number system. So I'm sharing a link to that in the chat to look up. There's lots and lots of sites that reference this system. So I don't know that this is the best one, but it does explain a few different ways that you can use this system to figure out numbers that are important in your life path and your personality and your destiny and that kind of things. But we have lots of time to share from this breakout before we'll turn to Tugce. So is there anyone that might share something from what's come up so far, or something else you didn't quite have a chance to share that you don't mind sharing with the group?
I was telling people that in my group that with the, of course I ground a lot of my understanding of the number or associations with numbers now is of course grounded in the I Ching. The I Ching has kind of been the overlay for all the meaning that most of the, I mean not all, but a lot of the meaning that I have with certain numbers. And I was telling people, I didn't reveal her identity, but I was saying that one of the members in our board really, sees 33 as a life number, and it always synchronistically comes up for her. And I said, well, for me, and I mentioned, well, my house number is 33, but for me, it actually is in the I Ching. It's the number of retreat. It's actually leaving a situation. It's not, that's what it means. And so it hasn't really been a salient number in my life, I would say, but my house number was that. And when I bought the house, I actually one of the realtors involved, also, I had met her through an I Ching connection. So she also understood that 33. And I said to her at the time, 33, that's the sign of retreat, not the greatest house number, that, to have, but anyway. And sure enough, 9 years later, I left that house. So that, kind of was the number kind of meaning playing itself out over time.
I also mentioned the I Ching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So John, your meaningful number is the whole Fibonacci sequence, which is pretty epic since it's infinite. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Fibonacci was an Italian, I think, mathematician, and he started playing with just real early numbers. He said, all right, 0 and then 1. And then he said, if you add those two together, well, you get 1. And if you add the most right 2 digits, so if you add 1 and 1, you get 2. If you add 2 plus 1, you get 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8, etc. And you can keep doing that. And he said, well, that's kind of curious. And then he started looking at the swirls of seashells and how they developed. And he could see the series in those swirls. And he started looking at other places. When you look them up, there's a whole list of things he began to observe. The way I use it as a braking system for me. I can get overly enthused about stuff and often wreak havoc in my life. And so what I do is if I'm about to do something new that I might be very excited about, okay, 0 is like to meditate on it. And then 1 is I'll do 1, and then I'll take a break, and then I'll do another one. And if those 2 go well, then okay, now I'll try this twice, and if that goes well, and then okay, now I can do this 3 times. And so that's how I've incorporated, not so much seeing it out in the world, but as boundary conditions and patterning for my observations.
Thank you. How about others? Are there numbers that are significant to you where you have some reflection on their value or meaning to you as well? Greg, I think Greg and then Cyrus.
Okay. Well, my numbers are 11, 22, 222. And I wrapped up my presentation at 11:22, just so you know. So that little synchronicity worked out. But yeah, no, my just before COVID, I sort of analyzed my life and sort of plotted out all the major events of my life and realized everything changed, or all my major events were, 2 11-year cycles, which is 2 times 11, 22. But there's, yeah, and I went and say, okay, what does this mean? So I went and Googled that, and the sun changes polarity every 11 years. The planets line up a certain way every 11 years. And I was like, well, maybe I'm connected to the universe. And, my wife's got 2 11-year cycles, but it's different years. It's got 11-year cycles as well. So and there's a lot of events that are 22 years apart. And 222 shows up a lot. That was when we got married, and let's just say it shows up a lot. And so yeah.
Cyrus, how about you?
So yeah, like 2 years ago, I started seeing a lot the number 4 and 8, and then like months later, I started seeing like repeated ones, and now I just see a lot like the 1 and the 4 and the 8, in different combinations, and I think the way I try to interpret this number is like maybe God is trying to tell me like everything's gonna be okay, he just in a way of saying like like you have to be happy and joyful with everything that God provides you. And it's interesting because I've seen the number appear in like different events throughout history, like even 9/11. If you look at the Twin Towers, the zip code has those 3 numbers, and the Twin Towers only had that zip code. They had their own zip code area. and it was like 10048. And just like about, I can talk for an hour about all the different things, but I usually see the number when I bring joy to somebody, like if I buy them something, if the three numbers are in in the receipt, or if I help somebody with something, I look at the time and the three numbers also show up. So it's like when I bring somebody joy, like I take my family to eat ice cream and we get in the car and it's 8:14. And then when we get back in the car to go back home, it's 8:41. So it's like it shows up a lot. And it sometimes even when I'm sad, it's like it shows up and it brings me joy and it calms me down. It's like I feel like someone's saying, like everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah, Brian, you want to wrap us up for this part, and then we'll go to Tugce?
Oh, I was just wondering if, aside from thinking about what the universe is trying to indicate with that number symmetry, whether he looked into what other theories about what that kind of symmetry or those kinds of synchronicities might mean.
Yeah, Jane?
Yes, I just put a book in the chat, which is all about numerology. It's by Dr. Robert Pease, and it's called Spiritual Boot Camp. And so this is one of the things that I shared with my group. And it really talks about how the missing numbers also indicate areas of your life that you need to fulfill. And it really deals with your birth date and all kinds of things. So it's a fascinating discussion.
Hmm.
And Sue? Up.
Sorry, had trouble with the screen. Yes, I was just going to say one thing that occurs to me is I think that in a way our relationship with numbers is very much like a relationship with language. We tend to find specific numbers, and when they come up, I mean, and no one's rarely is someone having the exact same numbers, but when they come up, that is like I think someone said, I'm sorry to forget who that was, about maybe it was Cyrus, that it makes you feel good. It's like it's validating you, that it makes you feel like you are on track, you are in sync with what you want. And I think that's an important part of what helps us sync with other people and events around us. It's very important to feel like you are on track. And when these numbers appear, you feel like, well, this must be the right path that I'm going on. And it might not even be a very conscious thought for a lot of people that they get validations like this.
Yeah, so why don't we turn it over now to Tugce? Tugce, why don't you give us your insights on this? I know you've been thinking a lot about this topic recently.
Yes, thanks, Juliet. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you already. This is my first time in the coffee. And the reason that I'm here, I guess, as Juliet said, just recently, last month, even, let's say, I got into a little bit more numbers in terms of synchronicities, which even like synchronicities are kind of new for me. Like it's been almost 1 year that I'm like, oh, okay, there is something going on. And then I started seeing them more often. But last month I had I'll tell you first like why I got into numbers. It's actually through the Coincidence Project, one of the board members of the Coincidence Project. I'll tell you a little bit that story, like which numbers and how I got into that. And what I was thinking about it. And I'll just tell you one little story that happened yesterday, which was funny. So last month, I had the chance of meeting a couple of board members of the Coincidence Project. One of them is like Chris Mackey. Most of you might know him. He's such a lovely person. He gave me one of his books, like his Positive Psychology of Synchronicities, like for me to read. And there is a chapter actually on that book related to 6, because 6 is his number. And apparently the reason that he also got married with his wife is the number 6, because they kept seeing that number. They got engaged on like June 6, 6 p.m. Didn't even intend it to, but some stuff happened. And then 6 years later, on June 6 again, a really important event happened, like in Chris's life. While I'm reading this book, so I was talking to a friend that I'm not so close. We talk maybe like once in a couple of months or year even. My birthday was close back then. So I was like, oh, when is your birthday? And he said June 6th, which was funny. Some kind of synchronicity for me. And then after reading like Chris's book, so by the way, before that, so now I'm 34, but I was 33 years old. So until then, basically 33 was an important age for me, just because my birthday on 33, I had such profound synchronicity related to the before my 33 age. Someone told me that, like, it's such a sacred age, like it's the Jesus like resurrected kind of. And I was so pumped that, oh, this is gonna be my rebirth year, it's gonna be I'm gonna reborn like this age kind of. And my birthday, like I had such, as I said, like profound. I'm like, okay, just be careful what you wish for. Like since then, like, I was so into synchronicity. So 33 was an important number for me. And towards the end of my age, which is last a couple of weeks, I kept seeing 33 a lot, even hearing 33, but in a weird ways, like, so not like I'm not paying it, because so my background is also a little bit engineering and I'm scientist, so I'm still so skeptical, and really pay attention to probabilities, like, how they show up. I don't know, I'm gonna see a friend, for example, like after 10 years in Chicago, where I met the board members, and he was gonna pick a wine. He said, oh, I'm gonna pick the third wine from the third shelf. I'm like, why would you even say that? He's like, I don't know. Like it was so interesting, coming those like threes everywhere. Anyway, so 3 is an important number for me, and I'm reading like Chris's like those cycle synchronicities. I saw so many patterns between my synchronicities and Chris's synchronicities, honestly, that made me a little bit more excited, because before that, Bernie told me once like about patterns of patterns. So I'm like, wait, is there something here? I wanted to talk to Chris again after reading his book, like to talk about those patterns. And we just realized that during that talk that I'm 33 years old and he's 66 years old, which was super interesting. That made me think, because my background is electrical engineering and I studied like in my undergrad signal processing, Fourier transform and everything. So which made me think, are there those frequencies? Again, this is all without, I haven't read any book or anything about numerology, but just like, thinking, is there any of those frequencies in people's life that, because those signals are like cycles basically happening, and those cycle synchronicities probably, and maybe if some people have similar synchronicities, are they similar frequencies or similar numbers, like somehow they overlap at those like certain intersection points, let me say. And actually, when Greg was talking about, because 11:11, we were in the same breakout room. 11:11 is his cycle and his wife's cycle, which made me think about that again. Like, there might be maybe more alignment between people having similar numbers, similar frequencies, kind of. So since then, actually, for 2 weeks, I also tried to write some, like, my top 10 synchronicities and their dates. I asked Chris also, oh, can you write that for me, kind of, like, to see if there's anything. Spoiler, I couldn't find something yet. But for example, like Chris, because 6 is such a cycle in his life, one thing that I realized was, okay, he started writing his first book on 2013, and then 6 years later he wrote the second version of the book, and he wants to write another book, and after 6 years, meaning the next year actually. So I was like, oh, congrats in advance, probably you're gonna start writing your book next year, which was, I don't know, funny, you know, if like, because I'm thinking then if that happens, those cycles, can we do prediction for the future events, like, or, you know, if those dates are important for you, like, do you need to pay more attention to those dates? Or once you see that pattern, do you actually break the pattern? Like, you know, if you pay attention, would it happen or not? So I think that would be one of my questions, that if we want to discuss in the breakout room. But also so that made me think a lot about 3 and 6. Then one of my friends who knows my background told me that Nikola Tesla, was also super interested in 3, 6, and 9, because he claimed that 3, 6, and 9 are the keys to the understanding in the universe. So I was telling Juliet actually, okay, I'm gonna check a little bit more, you know, if I'm gonna find any more information for this session specifically. I did, but I think I couldn't find any. They were like more like rumors kind of thing. They keep saying that, okay, Tesla had those numbers on his notebook, like, you know, he was rotating around the building 3 times, but I couldn't find any like database empirical stuff, but still, you know, like opening my mind. But 2 days ago, just because I couldn't find any specific information about, you know, Tesla and like 396, I mean, yes, there are a lot of information like why those numbers are important, but I told universe that, okay, give me a story to tell on the coffee, you know, in 2 days. So what happened yesterday is, so I was, how much detail I should get into that thing, but so yesterday I had to talk to someone that I never knew, basically on a dating app. Okay, I'll be clear. I usually don't use like dating apps so much, but someone super swiped me, like, you know, extra, like, I'm like, oh, okay, normally it's someone that I wouldn't like, I don't know, use or look, but then I'm like, oh, okay, let me just talk to him. And then on his profile, he says like, oh, he wants to visit all the US national parks. So I just asked like, oh, have you finished it yet? And then he said, no, only 21 so far. And he didn't ask anything else, you know, because I'm like, okay, you super liked me, but you don't even try to do more conversation. I was a little bit intimidated. So I was like, oh, how many are there US national parks? And then he said 63, and that's his only answer and nothing else. That was, I don't know, to me, so funny. And like, you know, hearing that 63 just yesterday after asking, you know, universe, give me that some numbers that I can tell, kind of. It was funny. So I also wanted to tell this story. So I'm still thinking a lot about those cycles, basically, cycle synchronicities. I think they're interesting. I had a couple of also examples related to, let's see, like same theme event happened exact same day, like, you know, 10 years later, kind of. So yeah, 10 minutes is exactly. Julian, I told you I'm so on point.
10 minutes. Yeah. And I see Michelle has raised her hand. I think she might have a question or a comment before us, and then we'll transition to the breakout. So Michelle, do you want to come off mute?
Oh, hi. I just wanted to mention, because there's a lot of coincidences hearing, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name that just spoke.
Tugce.
Tugce?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I just wanted to mention a number because you were saying 66. My grandfather was born on June 6th. Okay. And yeah, and 6 was a, you know, it was an important number for him. And then also Greg, you were talking about 1111, and I feel very compelled to share with everyone here some information that I was given, or a task that I was given from higher dimensional beings. That was a couple of years ago, but I was given a date of 11/11/2024 to gather people or to spread the word, because that is an important date vibrationally, to help raise our consciousness and raise our vibration, and come together in unity. So I just wanted to share those dates, because there's no coincidences, right?
Thanks for sharing. Wow.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do on 11/11/2024? Planned yet?
I don't know. I'm just starting to kind of tell people. I haven't really done a great job getting it out there, but I'm starting to now. So, but yeah, so I just want to share that.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, to add this one here. Yeah, so Michelle, also one of our cafe regulars, two of them actually, Krista and her partner G, they've hosted cafe in the past. You'll find a cafe that they hosted with me a year or so ago if you go to our YouTube channel. They have a lot of business and gathering the right people and helping raise the vibration of the planet as their mission. And it's all around 11/11, which is also G's birthday. And they did a big launch of their joint venture last year on November 11th. And I know that they're planning to host a big get together on 11/11. So I know Future Advisory Council, I'll see if I can see the link to their information during the breakout. I'll look for that, Michelle, and others here might be interested because they have that 11/11 goal and a similar mission, I think, as your vision or your information that you received. So there might be some alignment there to meet a whole bunch of other people they've been gathering around this 11/11 thing.
Yeah, no, I would really appreciate that. That sounds wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I see Brian's hand. So Brian, you want to share something before we go to the breakouts?
Oh, I was just wondering, Michelle, you said you got guidance about 11/11. Did the beings share why that number was important or give any explanation?
So I was given that number in 2020 for the date of 11/11/2024. So I just know that vibrationally, it's it all has to do with frequency and vibration. And the numbers 11/11. I have more on it, but I know we're kind of limited on time. But I can try to share a little bit more in the chat if you guys want.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, and there might be time even after we come back from the breakout.
Oh, okay.
So Tugce, if I'm relaying this correctly, you just correct me if you want to add to it. For the breakouts, you're inviting people to think about patterns or patterns of patterns, that any kind of numerology that might relate to it, or it might even not be number based, but where there's a cycle that's repeating, and to think about that, share about that in the breakouts. Is that right?
Yeah, cycles, especially repeating on the same date, kind of, or around some specific numbers again,
Yeah. All right. So we'll think about cycles and patterns and how they relate to dates or numbers. And we'll have the same amount of time in the breakout group. We're doing good on time today. So we'll have you'll be with either one or two other partners and probably new ones, as much as I can keep all the last breakout groups in mind. I've tried to reshuffle them so you get to meet new people. And we'll see you on the other side of the breakouts. It's muted us all. Welcome back. Good to see everyone. We'd love to hear from some of you about where you went in the cafe so far and in the new breakout session we just held. So anyone that wants to share a bit, please come off mute and let us know how things have gone. being comfortable with silence.
Juliet, we had a very good breakout in ours, talking about some cycles, personal cycles, and but I also mentioned that we're some surprising cycles if you compare certain things in our solar system, which was that it's kind of a coincidence that the Jupiter goes around the sun in 12 years, and also then you have the Earth goes around the sun in 12 months, and that seems maybe not such a coincidence, but then you see that Saturn goes around the sun in 29.5 years, and our moon orbits the sun in 29.5 days, roughly. So it's kind of, when you get those two coincidences, then you start saying, oh, well, that's really special. And maybe the only thing you can say, if you're just going to go by pure scientific observation, is it's a very special time in the solar system right now. And considering that the Earth has developed not only life, but intelligent life, or at least most of the time we have very intelligent life to enjoy. The solar system is changing, and it's only gotten to this particular arrangement. Jupiter used to be farther out in our solar system, they have determined, and the moon is slowly moving farther away, so that is going to change the orbit of parameters. Just like we're not going to have eclipses one day, full total eclipses. It's going to not be completely perfect. We're at a very perfect point, which isn't going to necessarily go off the cliff anytime soon, even with our problems. But just to mention that these things exist that we can see scientifically that might be enjoyable to notice.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Hey, Tugce, how are you thinking now that we had the breakouts?
It was nice to hear other people's story, and it made me think even more strongly that, as I said, people having those frequencies. For example, we are on the same breaking room with Cyrus, and his are like 4 and 8, and 8 is. It just made me think about this Fourier series again, because multiple harmonies. It's not like 3 and 8, for example, but usually it's 4, 8, 1, 2, or 3, 6. Some kind of, because multiplication, between those numbers. Usually that's what I saw until now. So, in those Fourier transform, usually there's this one main frequency and the multiplication of those. So it made me think a little bit more about this. I still feel like there's something there. I will try to discover it more, but yeah, it was nice to hear those different stories also from everyone. Yes, Cyrus, you want to say something?
No, I wanted to mention that a few days before the eclipse, which was April 8, there was an earthquake in New Jersey, and it was 4.8. So I started seeing a lot of videos like pastors, talking about the number 4 and 8, like, oh, Jesus is coming soon. And quoting the Bible verses with the Exodus 4.8 is, I'm sorry for there's a storm in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Sorry for the noise. But yeah, I found it interesting that a lot of Christian pastors were talking about, the 4 and the 8, there's something going on with those numbers.
I mean, one thing that I was also thinking if that would help people to explore more, but again, this is just an hypothesis, just because again, Tesla thought a lot about these things, and Tesla is the one who found out this, wireless communication and all those like energy systems. When I realized those cycles, one thing that I was thinking, just because when I was writing dates of my synchronicities, I was, because when I define synchronicity, it is for me that there is an inner event, like, happening in my mind, and then that happens, I see it in the real world. So I was actually writing the dates of these, like, if I remember, like, if it was like, oh, when did I think about this, or this strong meditation happened, and then I saw it in the real time. So I was trying to see also that delta, like time interval happening, like, if there is any number in terms of manifesting whatever is happening in your inner mind to the outer world, if it makes sense. Because one thing that I realized, this is not just a couple of examples, not like super calm, but some things happened in 3 days, some things happened exactly after 3 months, kind of. So I was like, do we have those numbers in that like delta, happening? Like, because it's like we are sending a signal, maybe, and then getting that signal in the real time. But something to consider, I don't know if you guys have happened to happen any kind of those things or those patterns, that would be also interesting to see.
Well, Tugce, could you explain what you mean by delta? I'm not an engineer.
Sorry. What I meant is, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I say like synchronicity, there is something happening in your mind related to that thing. It could be a thought, it could be a meditation, dream, whatever, and then you see it in the other world, right? So the time difference or the date difference between these two events, I was saying like as delta, basically the time difference. So basically, if it happens immediately, this is such a synchronicity. That's, and as like the more that time, I guess, expands, it's less surprising, maybe. But I was just trying to see somehow, I don't know why, but if there is any number in that difference, like, between inner mind and other reality thing. I don't know. It was just a thought that if there is any frequency in that thing, like, like I manifest things in 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, kinda. I don't know.
Yeah, and delta just means the change or the difference between.
Time difference.
Yeah,
between
you can
that
find it
two
by
events.
subtracting one
Yes.
from another.
Yes, yes.
And it's a little pyramid.
Yeah. If you see a pattern like this, let me know. You can let me know. That would be interesting.
I'm curious, maybe some of the folks we haven't heard from much yet, like Jessica or Sean or Marianne, if any of you might want to share anything about what's come up for you right now. Marianne.
Patterns have been really, really something very significant. And in fact, I just made a note to myself because I recently sat down and wrote out significant synchronistic experiences that I've had in my life. And now what this has made me think, oh, let's go back and look at those dates of when they happened. And if it falls in, because I've done the numerology thing. And so I want to compare it and see how it matches up with it. You mentioned 2017. My life experience in 2017, I was I became I am a survivor of gun violence. And it happened, my numbers are the 369s, and the date that it happened was April 6th. So there we've got the 6th month and the 6th day. So I'm going to go back and look at some of those those experiences and see how they match to my numerology chart. But this has been really wonderful. And the synchronicity of finding you all was just another step in the path. It's wonderful. Thank you.
How did you find us, Marianne, if you don't mind sharing?
I have a local friend, Sharon Joy, who was in Roanoke at the meeting with oh gosh, the name just flew out of my head. Bernie. And I think Bernie was there, but anyhow, it was through her. And actually, I am hoping to get to meet Bernie this next week. I'll be in Virginia. And but it just, the synchronicity over my life, through my life is just, it's very exciting and has given me some wonderful experiences, and of course plenty of challenging experiences, but grow from and learn from and be able to share. I'm an artist and a writer, so I do a lot in that direction. And I'm also an art therapist, so it really brings a lot of the synchronicity comes through my art and through my writing. So thank you for doing this. I'm looking forward to it each month now.
Very good. Yeah, and I hope everybody's on our mailing list already. I'll post a couple links in the chat in just a minute here to our website. And we do these programs for free, but we are a nonprofit, so we exist on donations. So if that's something that's possible for any of you, we'd be very grateful for any support. You know, $10, $100, $1,000. We'll take it all. Whatever you might be able to share, and that helps us keep the wires open, and we are definitely trying to find people. So tell others also about this gathering, especially when you have really nice conversations about connections and patterns and numbers and coincidence and synchronicity. They might enjoy knowing us, and I'm sure we'd enjoy knowing them. So please help us keep getting the word out. It's fun to hear about how people are finding us, because I think everybody has a unique story about how they've found us and how we found them. So it's just fun to be part of all of this. I'm really grateful to all of you for being here and showing up and sharing about your life with all of us. I wonder, any of the others here that, especially if you haven't had a chance to share yet, we'd love to hear from you. If there's any other comments waiting to be spoken. I see some nodding, Sean. Does that mean I can prod you? Oh, your microphone has gone.
Oh, hello,
There you
hello.
are.
Hello. Yeah, I've just been thinking a lot of the distinction between those synchronicities, experiences, those numbers that are like very outwardly or very like personally related to personally valued to us. For example, birthdays, days of passing, days of big impactful moments, or just like things are just like personally related to you, and then compared to the numbers that are outside our conscious sphere of perception or at least of relation that seem to be like following us around and or just like snapping us into those moments of lucidity. So that's just that's the aspect that I've been really thinking of and reflecting on throughout our conversations today and listening to everyone else. Um, yes. And also the 369 has been something that's been just really just interesting to me since I first looked into it. So I've gotten a few different perspectives and insights on just the um different ways that we can see numbers as a language of correspondence that can be that we can just use to better understand the outside world and our internal world. So no big points to give other than that, just reflective comments. Thank you for giving me the space though.
Thanks, Sean. And I shared a couple of links in the chat. And you can always save the chat. And the way to do that in Zoom is there's a little ellipses, the 3 dots at the bottom of your chat window. You click on that, and the first option is Save Chat. And it'll save it to your computer, wherever your default setting has things saved. So text file somewhere. Tugce, Brian, and any other participants, help us start to wrap this up here as we get to the 90-minute mark.
Well, I definitely think that certainly, and I've known this for a while now, almost 20 years since I've been starting my spiritual metaphysical journey. I definitely think that the patterns represented by numbers, among many other things and facets, are not necessarily the orthodox reductiveness that often mainstream culture would have us believe. So it's definitely been very interesting for me to hear about the different ways that people have interpreted it. I, for example, didn't think of the I Ching, among other things, or anything of that sort, or some of the books that have been recommended as far as interpretations of various number systems. So that's definitely been very helpful. And I would like to thank everyone, and especially Tugce, for being so brave and participating for the very first time. And thanks so very much, all of you.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting. Also, I was feeling a little because I'm so new to synchronicities and numbers, but seeing and hearing those stories just makes me, even because in the beginning I was, as a scientist, I was so skeptical on those things, but hearing them, it just inspires me even more to dive into those things. So thanks a lot for inviting me and, having those discussions. It was amazing. Thanks for Brian and Juliet specifically for co-hosting. Yeah, it was amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And we're always looking for new topics and themes and folks that can host. So if you've hosted before, we invite you back. And if you haven't hosted yet, but you might like to, please get in touch and let me know. Greg,
Yeah, Juliet, I'm gonna be sending you an email about some recent event that was off the frickin' charts related to spirit from the spirit world, and it actually involves a number 713.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Greg sometimes sends me these wonderful emails with more of his coincidence stories. And we also do have a story forum on the website. So if there's a story of your own that you wouldn't mind sharing with others, I know we have more than 100 different stories. I haven't seen the full total recently, but we're getting, hundreds of stories collected. And one of the things that we want to do over time is begin to do research with those stories and see what we can learn from one another. So we would love to hear from you and welcome you to go from today and go share a number story or something. So I'll add that as sort of our last link here in the chat. And we really thank everyone for being here. So under the share link, you can go and share and add it. Yeah, we usually try to keep them about 300 words, relatively brief stories. So some of the really complex ones might be a stretch to express, but as much as you can, try to keep it brief so people can glance through and read a lot of interesting stories in kind of a shorter format. Yeah, so Greg, you're welcome to add it to the website if you want, or you can just send it to me if it's more of a one.
Yeah, no, this is a present. This would be a presentation. Kick off for one of these upcoming meetings. We'll chat more about it later. I'll send you the story.
Yeah, and just keep noticing, one of the things that we're doing is expanding the ways we think about meaningful coincidence through these gatherings. And it allows us to increase our sensitivity and awareness. And some people say, are we seeing more of them because it might feel that way? Or are we simply noticing what was already there? And of course, that's very difficult to know. But we know at least at a minimum, we can increase how much we are aware of. And thinking about all these different themes and topics helps us to come at it in lots of different directions and increase our awareness and our capacity for appreciating and noticing these when they arise. And then together, maybe we'll come up with new depths of meaning making from all of these experiences. So we're just at the end of our 90 minutes. I think we might sign off here in a second. And yeah, 7, 1, and 3 gets back to 11, 11. It's back to the 11s.
Back to the 11.
Yeah, and Sean has shared his email in the chat. He would be happy to hear from anybody who'd like to keep working on these things. And we've recruited some of you guys to do multiple things, and we'll keep doing it. So please stay tuned. I know next month for Cafe, we're going to have our board member, Katrin Windsor, come back, and she's really going to focus on how to polish up all these experiences and tell a really good coincidence story. And we're going to start posting more videos of stories. Right now we have Story Forum where you can write it out, but we're also going to start inviting everybody to just hold up the phone and tell the story in a short format. And we'll use Cafe to kind of look at how we tell our stories in an effective way, impactful way, especially the ones we can share kind of, start, middle, finish a little bit more cleanly. Some of the patterns and the cycles, those can take a little longer. And I just put out a book where I share a few of my really impactful coincidence stories. It's called Compassion and Coincidence. So Bernie's next book will also be his life told through his meaningful coincidence stories. So this is kind of coincidence memoir of how we can reflect on the bigger ones. So we want to do long form and short form. Cyrus, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to share like a short synchronicity story that happened. It actually happened on the previous meeting. And that was the first time I joined these sessions, and I invited one of my tenants, and I was writing to him privately, like, oh, hey Peter, what a coincidence that you're here in this meeting, and then I wrote to him, what a small world. And then the host, who was Marsha Singer, started singing It's a Small World After All. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really fun about these cafes is that we see new coincidences unfold between us because we show up and share our coincidences, and there's new coincidences upon those other coincidences. That's a really fun thing that we've seen when the patterns keep repeating across one another, or we create them by coming together. So yeah, so the share page on our webpage has our story forum. I think also our blog, and you can click on view all stories. So it's a forest green button with the story forum where you click on view all stories, and then you can start glancing through them to see all the different ones shared already. I think that's about it for our time today, but we want to thank Brian and Tugce for diving in and helping host us and discuss. And thank you. Lovely to see you all and to meet you for those for whom it's first time, and we hope to see you back.